Well, it kind of just happened organically, I guess I would say. I ran the Boston Marathon 2013, the year of the bombing.
Mhm.
And after that, I just did some personal kind of self-expression paintings about the Boston Marathon and continued to paint the scenes for the Boston Marathon that year and decided to do a little show at Marathon Sports in
Mhm.
Boston just to raise some money for the One Fund, which is the Boston Marathon bombing charity.
Right.
And people just really responded well to those paintings. And so I continued to make Boston Marathon paintings. And it just kind of took off from there. And AT&T found me online and it became a little niche that I had. And so I've just continued doing that ever since.
This episode of the Smart Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Solpre, skincare for athletes. Whether you're in the gym, on the mats, on the road, or in the pool, we protect your skin so you're more comfortable in your own body. To learn more, go to solpre.com. Welcome to the Smart Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Funk. My guest today is an artist and a runner. She won the Brooklyn Marathon in 2015. If you ran Boston in 2016, you may have seen some of her artwork because she did the artwork for the AT&T display at the Boston Marathon then. She's also a Steeplechase National Club champion. Welcome to the show, Hope Phelan.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, we got to. So, if you are listening on iTunes, you're missing out on the visuals, especially since Hope is an artist. So, we've got, I assume, a piece of work that you've done behind you there.
Yes, yep. This is one of the paintings I did for AT&T in 2016. One of my Boston Marathon works.
So, how does that gig come about? Because I mean, I am not a working artist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do things from time to time. And
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who would like to be working artists, and I know that it can be difficult getting, paid work. How do
Mm-hmm.
you get to the point that you're working for AT&T of all people to do a commissioned work?
Well, it kind of just happened organically, I guess I would say. I ran the Boston Marathon 2013, the year of the bombing.
Mhm.
And after that, I just did some personal kind of self-expression paintings about the Boston Marathon and continued to paint the scenes for the Boston Marathon that year and decided to do a little show at Marathon Sports in
Mhm.
Boston just to raise some money for the One Fund, which is the Boston Marathon bombing charity.
Right.
And people just really responded well to those paintings. And so I continued to make Boston Marathon paintings. And it just kind of took off from there. And AT&T found me online and it became a little niche that I had. And so I've just continued doing that ever since.
So I guess we'll go back to Boston with the bombing. I mean, were you still on the course at that point in time? Had you already finished?
I was really lucky. I'd already finished about an hour before the bomb went off. I was one street over on Newberry Street, if you're familiar with Boston,
Okay.
waiting for some friends, to gathering and trying
Hmm.
to find everybody and heard the bombs go off, but I didn't see them. And just saw people running and screaming, and we were just kind of confused, like what had happened.
Yeah.
I just thought a car had backfired or something, nothing. I didn't
Right.
assume the worst, obviously. But then people were saying that there's like a lot of blood, we have to evacuate the area. And the cell service was down too, so we really didn't know what had happened. So I just started walking back to my apartment because I didn't know what else to do. And then, eventually an hour or so later found out the whole story. So yeah, it was a very
Does
scary
that
time in Boston.
yeah, does that I mean, so you're almost it's like I understand. So you're saying you didn't think it was a bomb, obviously. And I think that's something that maybe sometimes we as Americans forget. Like we're engaged as a country in like all these wars, but like we don't live in a country where wars are being engaged. Like we don't have to think
Right.
about. soldiers coming into our towns and blowing things up or occupying areas. And so
No.
it's not even in our consciousness that like things like that can happen.
Yeah, no, I didn't think there was anything like that had happened when, no. Yeah, it seemed very surreal. Even when people were saying it, I was like, no, it couldn't be that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Does that like wash so like after you got back to your apartment and then, the um not proceeding, the weeks later,
Mhm.
does that reality wash over you, or how does it even affect you, moving forward from there?
Yeah, I think that was kind of why I started doing the paintings because I was just kind of trying to make sense of out of the whole thing. I was kind of, it was some like new territory. I guess you've never experienced it before. We were for I'd say maybe 48 hours after the bombing. We were supposed to stay inside because they were doing the manhunt trying to find the bombers too.
Right.
And I had some friends in Watertown where they ended up finding him who were caught in like uh, crossfires and hiding under the cars and sending videos. And it was just like so strange because you're just not used to that. Like you said, we're not living in a war torn area, and it was just like, what's going on here? Where are we living? And so that's when I was, stuck in my apartment for a couple days and making these paintings, and it kind of just came out of me. I guess.
Yeah. And so you continue to do it now. So I would assume that, you know, your paintings of other years are not just centered around like the thoughts and emotions around the bombing, but other aspects of the race.
Yeah, the year after that, I made a couple right then that were mostly just emotional, like abstract expressionists, a little with runners in them.
Hmm.
But then after that, I didn't want to highlight anything bad about the marathon. I wanted to bring the joy back into the race and um, move away from that. So the rest of my paintings, the ones I made for AT&T and beyond, are all happy and centered around how amazing Boston Marathon is, the joy, the support, and how Boston rallied and came back. And the race continues to be awesome today. And yeah.
Yeah. Um, do you, I think I read something about that, you donate proceeds from selling the paintings to uh, the fund for the families affected by the bombing, or was that just
Just
initially?
that show that I did the next year, I
Oh,
did
okay.
yeah, donate some of those proceeds to the one fund.
Okay. So is since as Joe kind of gave me your bio, you being an artist and runner, do you work full time as an artist?
I work part time as an elementary school art teacher, and then
Okay.
the other part of the time as a working artist.
I would still consider that. I know people give teachers a hard time, but like, especially like, I'll say art teachers or music teachers, where it's like, obviously everybody knows the saying, if you can't do, teach, but it's like the best people that teach are the ones that also do.
Yeah, right.
So I don't, yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh no, I'm not. No, I would consider you a working artist if you're getting paid to do works, but you also teach. Like I think that's perfectly acceptable, at least in my book.
It's kind of the best of both worlds, also because for a while, right after college, I was exclusively freelancing,
Yeah,
and it's so stressful, not
yeah,
getting a steady paycheck first of all, and then health insurance and all that stuff. So I teach 3 days a week, and the rest of the time I can work on my artwork, and I think it's a good balance. And it's also nice to get out and talk to people. And,
hmm,
it gets a little lonely if you're in your studio all day, every day with your
yeah.
own thoughts.
Like all the paintings start certainly turning to like somber hues, and
Mhm.
slowly you're like, I'm gonna do a whole scheme in gray, like.
Yeah, yeah. And children are so inspirational too. Like the artwork they make is it's uninhibited and just lovely, full of joy, and that sometimes I bring that inspiration back to my studio with me. So.
Yeah. Is this like, do you have to get into a state where it's like you so like for racing, so this makes sense too. I mean, you probably have a routine, your warm up routine before you go run your race. Do you have like a similar kind of, I'll call it a warm up routine, but to paint where it's like, I get out the paints, lay them out in a certain pattern. You know, get my brushes out. There's like a certain kind of methodology you get in the zone for painting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as routine as running. Running, I'm
Okay.
like, I need to eat 4 hours beforehand. I'm
Right,
very
right.
exact about that. Painting, it's kind of when the mood strikes you. I feel like sometimes you're just in the right headspace and it comes out and it's just flowing just right.
Yeah.
And I do paint very gesturally, so I would say I do kind of do a little warm up, just kind of some gestural marks, kind of doodles, I guess,
Hmm.
on a separate piece of paper, and then start on whatever I'm working on. And I start very loosely usually. I do mostly watercolors or like the work behind me right now is wet on wet acrylic.
Okay.
So the beginning layer is just very loose and almost abstract. You're just kind of blocking in the colors,
Hmm.
and then you start to build it up layer by layer and then work on the details later in the painting. So that's kind of like a warm up within a painting, I guess.
Yeah. And so you're doing like the kind of classic method, you're doing like an underpainting and then painting over and
Yeah, exactly.
okay. Okay. I was just curious. That's the art background coming out. I was glad you said acrylics. I was curious because it looks like acrylics.
Hmm.
I liked working with oils. I I don't remember why I preferred oils, but um, and I don't really paint much anymore. If I draw, it's like it's gonna be graphite or I'm gonna get. I like charcoals. I like working with charcoals. Then I don't have to worry about the color aspect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just all since I do it so infrequently. For me, I almost find talking about like kind of getting in the mood or like finding your own inspiration for a work. I I almost find I'll have a period of maybe a month every year where I draw, and it's often this like weird, still, almost depressive time in the middle of winter
Oh, yeah.
where my mind kind of I'll say calms down, but like there's a very specific time when I'm like I feel like I need to draw something or do something, and it's this just very interesting mood, and I don't know how to get into it other than it just happens in the wintertime. So I'm always
Right.
curious to see like how you stay productive or like the artists I work with that I hire for projects, how they just continue to output creative things all the time.
Hmm. I think the winters are definitely a great time, especially I'm in rural Vermont and
Right.
snowed in a lot,
Yeah.
and you're inside more, so you're just there with your paints, and it's a nice time to create artwork for sure.
Hmm.
But I also love working outside and plein air. I do love like outdoor painting, so, especially with watercolors. I can take them around; they're portable. So
Hmm.
the different seasons here are all inspirational in their own way. The fall, the beautiful
Do you have
color.
any watercolor pieces here on hand with you?
Hmm. I probably could go get one. Not like right next to me, but
I was
um,
just curious. I was just curious to see it. Like I love the look of watercolors,
mhm.
but I always found them very difficult to work with for my temperament. I always feel like the different mediums have a little bit to do with who you are and how you feel as to
Totally.
like how you relate to how like the medium reacts, the different pressures and the way it mixes and blends and the colors you can get. My sister really, um, she really gels well with watercolors, and I could never quite figure it out. But they're very beautiful once you can
Yeah.
like the people that do
You have to
handle
let
them.
go and let the water
Maybe that's my
but
problem.
it's like a lack of control. I enjoy it because it's free form and a little more gestural, but my husband's the same way. He does not enjoy the watercolors because they have a mind of their own
Yeah,
sometimes.
I think you probably hit the nail on the head for me. I'm like, no, I need to be like I need to tell the paint what to do, not let the paint tell me what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the same way. It's like pen and paper, pencil, needs to make his little marks and be able to erase it if it's coming out not exactly the way he planned.
Yeah.